Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hive Mind podcast. With us, as always, we have the usual crew: Ceteris, our head of research; Jan, managing partner of ventures; Duncan,
100x searcher.
100x searcher. There it is. Here to, I'm sure we'll get some victory laps on Banana today. And today, I think we have a bunch of topics to start off with. Maybe we can start with the ETH ETF. Much anticipated. We've started to have flows data. What do you guys think? How's it looking? I think we had the first positive inflows day yesterday, right? After a bunch of grayscale selling. Yeah, how are you guys feeling about this? What do you?
I feel like it's been relatively tame, and then we've had the grayscale outflows, obviously. So those seem to be they were really aggressive the first few days. They seem to be slowing down a little bit. So I guess we'll start to get. It's always hard to tell with the flows when there's so many grayscale outflows because you don't know how much is really leaving, how much is just being put into other ETFs. The first day there was like this big Bitwise. I think it was Bitwise. There was like a big Bitwise Bitcoin outflow, big Ethereum inflow. So it kind of looks like maybe there's some rebalancing. People just want to get exposure to. If the rule is like you want 1% of your portfolio in crypto, and it was all Bitcoin, and now ETH is here, you might just want to market cap weight it. And so maybe there's like some of that rebalancing going on. But I feel like it's been pretty, all things considered, kind of like a non-event. Obviously, it's not a non-event, but all the macro stuff is kind of
down.
all the macro stuff is kind of overweighed.
You see the two charts of people like tracking percentage of outflows of both Grayscale's Bitcoin versus Grayscale's ETH product, and ETH seeing a larger percentage of outflows in the first couple of days, which I guess is indicative of more people, pulling off the carry trade on ETH, or a larger share of ETH Grayscale holdings being the carry trade potentially.
Or just like the market was like smarter to just like get out of this quickly.
Yeah, but yeah, like Cyrus mentioned, hard to exactly zero in on where those flows are going, whether they're recycling into the lower cost ETFs or exiting entirely. But yeah, I don't think we're getting surprised either way. This is probably roughly in line with expectations.
Yeah, I feel like what I've been surprised by just from crypto since the ETFs have launched, I kind of felt like the market would become like more forward looking. I feel like the crypto market isn't very forward looking. It's kind of like always like here and now what's happening, just because like the magnitude of these numbers, like with the Germany stuff, right? Like I was tweeting a lot about that, like the Germany selling, the $2 billion of selling, like really pushed Bitcoin down, and people were just kind of letting them like completely getting out of the way and selling. And then after they finished selling, like, obviously there's the Trump stuff as well, but a few days later, like we popped back up, like basically to where Germany like started moving coins. Same thing with like the BTC and the GBTC outflows. Like people just kind of got out of the way while that happened, and then once they were over, like the market piled back in. I guess I was kind of thinking that since we'd seen it happen before, the market might, I guess, like react differently, but it seems like it's the same thing. It's just since the magnitude of these flows, there's like $10 billion in ETH has to come out. Like I feel like there's not enough capital in this space to like be smart to that. It's just like that's just like a big enough number where people just kind of get out of the way and let it happen, and the market goes down, and like everyone knows it's coming, and then once the flows slow down, we'll probably see some normalization in ETH price. But it's just been like interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think like obviously Sol has done really well the last couple of weeks, right? And Sol ETH keeps like hitting that. It's hit this all-time high against ETH like 5 times now. But is part of that, to your point, people kind of getting out of ETH right now as this grayscale stuff goes, and then like when the grayscale stuff stops, are we going back? Because like Sol ETH has kind of just been whipsawing around for like all year. It just keeps going up and down between like 3.6 and 5.5.
Yeah. That applies to, I mean, also like even BTC, a lot of this stuff is, it seems like we need a real surge in demand to break through kind of the resistance. Same thing with Bitcoin, where it's been pretty range bound since March.
Yeah, I just think there's like there's been like such a huge move, in like from BTC BlackRock announced in June of last year, so like more than a year ago at like 25k BTC. So it's ran up, 3x, which is like 700 billion or something in market cap. And, so that's a lot of, I think, just digestion that needs to happen in the asset class. And now it's like much more liquid and accessible to these like institutional investors. And I just feel like there's just a churn there. Just like a period of digestion, and probably the same with Sol, right? Like Sol teleported from like 20 to 60, spent like a couple weeks there, and then went from 60 to 120, spent a couple weeks there, and then went to 200. And now we've been kind of ranging between 100 and 200 on Sol. But I think these assets did have pretty insane runs, and you're getting to like the levels of market cap and also overhang from like, Bitcoin has all this overhang from like the government and Mt. Gox, and like ETH had all the overhang from the FTX estate. And I just think it takes a while to kind of be digested and work through. It's more of a time thing, I think, less so. Like at some point, I think we're probably going to break out higher from this range, just because now it's so much more accessible. I was listening to Novogratz on Bankless, and I feel like he's always like really good perspective on kind of like where traditional finances is at with it, like Bitcoin and crypto, and is like a good kind of, take you out of the micro or like kind of the zoomed in crypto sphere that we can kind of get into on Twitter and stuff. But I think this stuff is just taking time for them to like really ramp up the sales team behind their ETF products. And
I mean, they're still not allowed
all
to
that
pitch
stuff.
them. They're still not allowed to
Yeah,
recommend them. So
that's
once you get the
huge.
recommendations, I mean, I was listening to another TradFi podcast, like the Reform Broker, Josh Brown, all those guys. They had like Matt Hogan, Bitwise, CO1. I think he's the CEO. And these are like TradFi guys, and they're like, oh yeah, once like Morgan Stanley and all these banks are able to pitch it, that probably just sends it right to 100K. And then when it hits 100K, now you have this new psychological number,
Yeah,
right?
and
And these are the
maybe you get a
TradFi guys
retail
that
in.
are, it's like they kind of understand it's the flow game. And
Yeah, and the Bitcoin ETFs have been wildly successful. I think it's like 2 of the top 6 ETFs in all of flows. Like I think IBIT surpassed QQQ in flows,
Yeah.
which is pretty insane, right? Like that's what everyone talks about for tech. So that's pretty crazy. I just think it's a matter of time thing, and like crypto people like things happening really fast. But I think TradFi is just like kind of a slower, and this regulation side of things is just slower, and it's going to take more time. But I think we're in a really good position right now, in like with like a year-long view.
Yeah, the concern was always, what is the next kind of catalyst after the ETF, and now, the previous really outlier event of governments getting involved in holding this is kind of just becoming a lot more real now.
Yeah, that could be huge. Just the ETF like itself, I feel like is just an ongoing catalyst. And then also, it's like if we get to 100K, like there's some point where retail stuff comes back in. I literally, on the day we topped on Bitcoin at like 72K or whatever, I got like 3 texts about it. It's just like such like the indicator of like people, like
I
some of
know
my
I did
friends that
too with
like,
the meme coin stuff. It was kind of
like
crazy.
literally the day we topped, I got 3 texts of like people who are like kind of into finance, but like not really. And I was like we were so close to like kind of getting that next leg up to like the retail escape velocity, which I think just brings in like a whole new cohort of money and pushes us higher on the alt side of things. So like if we get BTC 100K, I think we could get that retail wave.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, I don't know. Today it's like Fed has their meeting. They're going to probably signal that September will be a cut. And then there's been some good macro prints today. So that's probably, I don't know. Those are like the most important things, I guess, on like the overall macro side of like flows and everything, getting through grayscale, and then just like whatever happens here. Do you want to move topics from ETH ETF? do we want to talk about like, is it over for Cosmos? Is that where we're going to next?
Yeah, we could do that or the compound thing first, whatever you prefer.
Nvidia,
I
Nvidia is
mean,
up 11% today.
the compound, Duncan, pay attention. The compound thing is like, the compound thing is pretty short, I guess. Some guy did this governance attack on compound, and he was basically,
It's Humpy, right? It's the same guy that did the
yeah,
balancer attack back in the
Mhm.
day.
okay.
I think
Yeah,
he's
Do you have
done
a good
some as well.
understanding?
Lucius
Maybe you,
Squabble, too.
yeah, maybe you can explain it. Do you have like a good?
I don't know if I have like I've been busy today with Cosmos stuff, but basically there's this Humpy guy. He wrote a proposal to transfer some amount of comp from the treasury to a multi-sig controlled by him and some of his confederates or whatever, some of whom didn't actually even know they were on the multi-sig. And he tried it once, and the idea, like his, or what he's arguing, is that he's going to do this like gold comp, right? He calls his multi-sig the Golden Boys, and it's going to be this gold comp, which is like a yield bearing comp, which is going to be put into like this 99-1 balancer pool, which is like 99 gold comp and 1 WETH. And so it's going to be like this yield generating comp. It doesn't seem that interesting. Like like it doesn't seem like and then basically that proposal failed. And then he posted a second one for like 3 times the, or like I think the
5
first one was
times.
92,000 comp, and the second one was 500,000 comp. And the first one failed, the second one passed. So it seems like the governors didn't think he'd asked for enough for this. I
think there was less participation in the second round.
I know, I'm joking. It's just funny. It's just like how it's just governance, right? And the second one, he basically had this multi-sig that apparently has like some limits to what it can do. Like it can only deposit or withdraw. It can't like send the funds to another random address. So it's sort of like a Borg in some ways, although like I don't know that it's been audited or the people have looked at it to see what loopholes there might be in funneling the comp out. But it doesn't seem like an all-out rug. Like he's going to transfer this to himself and then sell it. And market's kind of showing that too. Like the price is trading roughly where it was before the governance attack, which is kind of interesting. I think that the game is probably just like he can accumulate all the governance power from this, from like the underlying gold comp. Presumably, like other people might deposit as well into this thing, and he controls all the underlying comp, right, and can vote it and do like all sorts of governance attacks. Not sure exactly what he might do. Maybe it's like an activist investor thing, and he just turns on the fee switch. It does actual cool stuff, or maybe it could be darker than that. I mean, obviously, this guy owns a lot of comp, and he's a pretty big whale, so he's sort of incentivized to not just hack the protocol. But yeah, kind of crazy that this got through governance, and that like the developers on Discord were like, "Don't at me, bro. Like that's against the rules." While this thing was being passed, and
Yeah, that was so. There's a few things from this. Yeah, people were in the Discord asking like what was going on, and admins were just saying, "Don't ask me."
Wait, but I don't even get what the issue is. So he voted himself a ton of comp.
Yeah, he like controls what happens with comp now, and so he is turning on the fee switch, as far as I understand, and he's distributing like the treasury. But
sounds bullish.
So yeah, but how is it bullish? Because it's not. It's like you're getting this one-time distribution of the treasury, and then comp makes like no money as it is.
Money markets are hard to generate a lot of revenue on.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, you have two sides to this. On one side, he owns so much that, he's incentivized to do something valuable, right? And try and generate value where there wasn't any before, because he's got meaningful skin in the game and can actually put through things that one individual previously wouldn't be able to, because there was pretty distributed governance control. But on the other, things that he can adjust are like LTV requirements. And so the issues there, as a borrower or lender, it's kind of off-putting, right? If you can get kind of liquidated without your control, because adjustments can be made quickly, and if you're not on top of things, that's a negative towards you. And so I think it probably moves some capital out of that ecosystem until there's additional clarity on what's going forward.
How much money is in the treasury?
I don't remember. I don't know off the top of my head how much is the treasury. He took a huge chunk of it though, and I think he now controls like over double the next biggest comp delegate. There's like a chart in one of Ignis DeFi's posts. It's pretty good. It's just crazy. This is like the OG DeFi protocol. One of the most, like, pretty much gave birth to yield farming, and it's in such a state that, like, this guy can pass a governance proposal granting himself a huge amount of comp, and this thing.
It really was a governance token from like day one. Like,
yeah. He also had like votes delegated to him and stuff. So I'm like, some people delegated votes to him, so which is kind of bizarre. And then there's also a bunch of delegates that just didn't vote. I don't know if they're just like asleep at the wheel or if there's something else.
There's a lot of apathy.
I tried to figure out what's going on with this gold comp thing. But
well, I mean, I saw
it makes sense.
I saw this one tweet, and it was basically saying how these big VCs just delegated all their voting power and liability to like these blockchain clubs. And so he was like, I understand why the blockchain clubs aren't voting. Also, it's like summer, so a lot of these blockchain clubs are like not active right now.
Like university.
And so
club?
yeah. So this was kind of like the perfect time to just launch this attack because nobody is paying attention. And let's face it, comp is like nobody cares about comp anymore. It's been abandoned pretty much.
But it's
like,
still $500 million market cap. Like, what the heck?
I know. But it's basically like Aave is still making. I have not seen one like compound improvement over the past like few years. I'm pretty sure it's just pure maintenance mode. So
it's crazy. Yeah.
It's kind of the issue of the regulatory environment, right? Yes, it affects startups, but it also affects those that have quote unquote made it and are now in protect my nest egg mode rather than grow this at the risk of losing everything mode. So it's just the incentives are there for the founders to kind of let it exist and allow like the decentralized community to do what they want with the governance.
That's literally it, right? Like it's another case where regulations end up creating the worst possible incentives, like the opposite of what you'd want to happen. Like ICO is another example, and this is just another one where any entrepreneurial efforts the team makes are seen as like ammo for an SEC case. And so if you already have a bunch of upside, maybe you've taken profit out of comp, like some of these founders and team might have done, or you just have like no legal risk tolerance, which is fair enough if you're in the US and stuff, your incentives to work on this are just completely skewed. And so like users are the ones that pay the bill for that, right? And when you compare Compound and Aave, like two projects like in the same vertical, started off pretty feature parity. Aave has literally shipped, so much stuff, like continuously shipped new stuff from a stable coin to the safety module, to the new version of the safety module, to a bunch of markets, to deploying on a bunch of chains, to like, their whole bridge, like the portals, like they've just continuously innovated and crushed it. I think it's one of the best examples of a DeFi protocol and decentralized like community actually succeeding. And that's like, obviously they're all based outside of the US, and have structured things pretty clever, pretty like well by all accounts. So yeah, just another Gensler victim, really.
Do you want to? I feel like that's a good transition into what happened today with the Terra thing, because I saw Gabe make this point that part of like the SEC's strategy is essentially caused like no one to be able to like work on upgrades or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I missed the initial bit. Can you say it again?
I gotta find the tweet from him, but basically it was like, so if I understand correctly, there's this Terra exploit today, and it's because there's like a patch upgrade, right? And then it kind of like reverted Terra back to like a previous state that like this IBC bug could go through. So here, this is what he wrote. Okay, he said, so basically because the SEC decided the only way for tokens to comply is for no one to work on the system, the SEC shut down TFL. There was no one to patch a well-known vulnerability on Terra, and someone minted Infinite Astro to dump it to oblivion. That was his point.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as direct as that. I think they basically but like this was a known exploit in IBC in April. There was like a bunch of teams working around the clock to roll out emergency patches to all the main Cosmos chains before anyone could find out and exploit the vulnerability. It's a vulnerability in IBC hooks, and what happened was the Terra patched it at that time, but then they did another upgrade in like late June, and basically the exploit went back in that upgrade, which is obviously a mistake on their part and sloppy. But yeah, realistically, like Gabe said, they're dealing with so much legal, like they're handcuffed in so many ways legally. Like they're in receivership, they can't take in any money. All their good people pretty much quit, or yeah. So it is a situation that's sort of a function of the position they're in. But I don't think it's as like they clearly could patch the vulnerability.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a case of like, yeah, it's more indirect than that. But yeah, that sort of moves us nicely to Cosmos capitulation season.
Yeah, I feel like people always talk about how like Cosmos is dead and stuff, but there was still a lot of excitement within Cosmos over the last couple of years. But now you're seeing a lot of people just come out publicly and are like moving to other ecosystems, are like legitimately just exiting the eco. There's been a lot of, things come to light that I've seen that I didn't know about the ecosystem before. And, all these new projects like Bear Chain, for instance, they want absolutely nothing to do with Cosmos. Like, I don't even know if they're going to use IBC. Like, I feel like if you use IBC, people, even though IBC is like it's like a great like messaging protocol and everything, but it's like if you use IBC, now people identify you as Cosmos. And that seems to be like a very hard kind of like brand association to grow out of these days. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like real capitulation this time.
I feel like I haven't heard anything interesting at Cosmos since Luna crashed. Like,
I mean, you're the biggest user of a Cosmos chain called Hyperliquid.
oh,
Like this is the thing.
that's
Like
Cosmos?
no one, yeah, that's Cosmos. Like that's the thing. I'm very bullish on the Cosmos SDK, which is used in 2 out of 3 of the biggest perp dexes in crypto, and I think will continue to be like used by any team, like the best stack for any team that wants to do app specific stuff on their L1. And it's also being extended to Rollups by teams like Dimension and Initia, who we invested in. So I'm still bullish on that. I just think that like Cosmos community, and that's the thing with Cosmos, like
There's no token there.
There's lots
that's
of
the thing.
tokens. Everyone made their own token. That's part of the
exactly
problem.
that and that's the issue. That's part of the problem, right? I think that's part of the problem with Cosmos is there is no shelling point central token for people to ape. Like it was meant to be Atom, but obviously we all know what happened there. And I just think the reality is you end up having like deploying an app chain has a bunch of costs. Like I said, maybe we could start with the benefits. Like the benefits of deploying an app chain are you get to customize a bunch of stuff, everything from like MEV to like consensus to like, transaction ordering, what token you pay fees in, like privacy stuff. Like there's been a bunch of experiments over the years in customizing your L1. And then also you get to control your block space, right? There's not an NFT mint that makes your chain unusable. And you have like sovereignty, so the ability to like roll back if some shit goes down on your chain, if there's a hack or something like this, and all the other benefits of sovereignty. And I continue to think that's like pretty differentiated. Like there's sort of Solana if you want to go really fast on a shared state machine. There's Ethereum like maximum censorship resistance, and then there's like Cosmos for sovereignty. And I think those are the 3 like L1 sort of like design trade-offs that kind of make sense. The issue is the cost of deploying an app chain are really big too. Like you have the sort of practical costs. So you have to recruit a validator set, you've got to pay them, You have to, but then there's also stuff like you got to integrate with wallets. You've got to do RPC stuff. You have to like make sure you get bridged assets into your chain. You have to integrate with exchanges if you want. If you want to get a centralized exchange listing, it's a lot of work for them. So there's all these like intangibles that are big costs. And then I think the biggest intangible cost is this loss of a single community spirit, right? Which is when you launch on Solana, the entire Solana community is bullish on you, because if your token succeeds on Solana, it's bullish Solana. There's like another great project on Solana, and like everyone can cheer for you. When you launch as a Cosmos app chain, you start at zero, right? Everyone else, if anything, is angry at you because you're pulling from the already limited Cosmos mindshare. And that's obviously like a feature of sovereignty. Like for DYDX, that's what they wanted. They didn't give a shit about the Cosmos users. They just wanted the benefits of an app chain. And I continue to think like the end game for a lot of stuff is app chains or app specific rollups, and a lot of them will choose Cosmos SDK. But I just don't see, I think a lot of Cosmos chains that are kind of undifferentiated will die. And the community, there is no real Cosmos community. Like there's no Cosmos SDK community, right? Like there's no token, there's nothing to unite them other than the fact that they use this stack. But
that's
that
a
is
huge problem.
Well, I don't know if that's a
kind
problem
of. It
anymore.
depends what you're optimizing
What do you
for,
mean,
right? Yeah.
kind of? It's clearly been a massive.
I think
well, like even
been,
if Cosmos is successful, it's like, why are we even talking about it? It's like
no, but now it's
you can't even make money off it. It's
no,
like,
but this is the point.
Why do we
it's
care?
Not. There's no Cosmos anymore. Like
Yeah,
there's no Cosmos anymore. Is just the point, which is probably a very good thing to happen. Like you're seeing, I saw the Stargaze guy today or yesterday. He literally was like on Twitter, Stargaze isn't a Cosmos chain, right? Like people are starting to just this idea of like Cosmos chains. Yes, there's like IBC, there's this protocol, but yeah, I think Cosmos is
as
like
a
dead in that way.
user, let's take Hyperliquid for example. I had no idea it was a Cosmos chain.
Right.
It's like EVM, like you use Arbitrum to bridge to it. It's like very fast, and it's gonna have its own token. It has like nothing to do with other than
It's
maybe
like Bear
like
chain, right? EVM.
Yeah,
It's gonna be EVM.
None of this stuff.
But this is kind of like if you're thinking about it in terms of Cosmos SDK, it's bullish Cosmos SDK, right? Because unlike Ethereum, which is maintained by like a single foundation, and obviously like researchers and contributors, anyone who uses Cosmos SDK, like even if the ICF runs out of funding, there's a bunch of like multi-billion-dollar chains that are all incentivized to maintain and improve Cosmos SDK as a tech stack, right? And so the problem is that Cosmos SDK, we can all be bullish Cosmos SDK as a tech stack, which I am, without having any way to make money from that, or there being a token.
Yeah, it's basically what's better for the token
for
number go up versus what's better for the product improving over time.
But
I think
that's
Cosmos
my bull
just
case
needs
for Inisha. Like
it
I
just
think
needs
Inisha,
new people. That's what Cosmos needs. Is like a refreshing of new people. The tech is fine, and it's like you need all these new
what are we
faces
even
now.
referring to as Cosmos? Just this technology?
Map chains.
I think
Let's just call them map chains.
It's so
I think
weird.
Cosmos is a chain that like a Cosmos chain like uses Cosmos SDK and has IBC enabled, I would say.
Yeah. So
Like
it's
all the-
just this
said
like
almost about
small
Thorchain, right?
group of developers that care about it. Like there's not going to be any big community that care about this thing because there's not this.
It's like a combination of states, basically.
Yeah, it's a bunch of states, but the thing is,
but which are
Adam
competitive with
was
each
meant to
other.
be-
It's like the L2s. It's like Arbitrum versus Optimism, but it's just even worse because they don't have anything. Like they don't have like a central. They don't have any financial incentive alignment.
Yeah, I think like the worst. The worst thing I remember over the last couple of years, there's been so many like Osmosis versus Kujira, like just back and forth fighting on Twitter, and it's like you guys are arguing over like peanuts.
It's like L2's without like at least we're both on ETH. Like fuck Solana. At least fuck Solana. It's like this is just even worse than that.
Yeah,
like,
but I know. I
like,
think the point. I think the point is that these are just going to be standalone chains that will have nothing to do with Cosmos. I don't even think like Hyperliquid does even use IBC. Like I don't think so. Thorchain doesn't use IBC. A lot of the most successful Cosmos chains don't use IBC, which is also kind of an interesting side note. Which again, that has nothing to do. That's not saying IBC is bad. It's not. It's just like for whatever reason you get into this, like you get into IBC, and now this is your liquidity, right? Like this is kind of what you're dealing with now. You're in this like IBC zone.
So, yeah, the issue is kind of like onboarding user sides. What you gain in flexibility is you lose in this readily available pool of users and capital that have easy access to what you're building, which is what you have.
But like
everyone on one chain.
Like no one's even there. Anyways, sure, we can be bullish the Cosmos SDK.
Well, this is kind of my bull case for Initia though. Like I think Initia is the original Cosmos like Atom thesis, but built properly and around like app specific rollups rather than L1s, which I think makes a lot of sense. It's basically like a settlement layer for app specific rollups, like interwoven rollups. And like if I had to explain it really simply, I'd say it's like how can you have Solana like UX with a bunch of app specific rollups where it feels like you're interacting with different app specific rollups, but it feels like you're on one, like a single chain.
That's cool.
Like a single wallet, like all the bridged assets. Like it's you basically like the way that another kind of metaphor to describe it is kind of like creating the United States, right? Like you have a bunch of different states, but there's some common frameworks that you enforce. And if you think about it, what is the stuff that matters?
I mean, that's like the Ethereum kind of was always, people always said it was like US and then Cosmos was like EU countries.
Yeah, but Ethereum just isn't doing it. That's
which should have been a sign, actually, to be honest, that Cosmos was EU.
Yeah. But will Initia be like a central like that? Will that become like the new Atom type thing?
Well, Initial is like the settlement layer. So I mean, Ceteris wouldn't be bullish on a settlement layer. But yeah, it's basically being the settlement layer for all these app specific rollups. So similar to, and then they use Celestia for data availability layer. But like if you think about what do you want? You want canonical versions of all the main assets with like deep liquidity on the L1, so that you can take them from one rollup to the other without having like, oh fuck, I have like wormhole ETH and I needed like, you know, like native ETH or layer 0 ETH here. Like you don't want to have those issues. You want to be able to bridge between the rollups. You want to have a single wallet that interacts with all of them and gives you a good UX, good access to the apps. So it's like solving all these, it's like a mixture of technical problems and UX problems, and trying to create this like interwoven rollup ecosystem. And then Initia is kind of like the Shelling Point asset and also ecosystem that everyone like, so that you have this dynamic where you have a community that's bullish on like in it, and it's bullish on all the projects that launch on it. And like, yeah, you just want to make the costs of, because I think app specific rollups make more sense for a lot of use cases. Like even the Solana maxis are increasingly admitting that like synchronous like atomic composability doesn't matter that much.
But can't you do a app rollup on Solana? Like can't you do a rollup on Solana?
Yeah, people will be doing that. Yeah,
people will be doing that.
When is Solana gonna have a good perp stacks? Like what the fuck? That's been a long time coming on that. Like how does Cosmos have Hyperliquid and DYDX v4? That's pretty good.
I mean, app chains, the one thing app chains have proven that they're good at is perp dexes. Because you really don't, because you don't need to deal with bridging assets like you do with spot exchange. You just need one asset. You just need USDC. And then you kind of just don't want anyone fucking around with your block space, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it makes a lot of sense for a pure trading protocol to be perp dex. So far, though,
advantages to it, right? Like the reason Hyperliquid can move so fast, and like offer such a good UX, everything from like the way they were bridging from Arbitrum initially is because of the flexibility of like owning your entire tech stack. And like ambitious teams will always want to, or maybe that's a bit of a strong statement, but a lot of ambitious teams will want to own their entire tech stack. Like we've seen it already with the Hyperliquids, DYDXs, like Steppins of this world. And I think you'll continue to see it. And it's just, what is the ecosystem that's best positioned to absorb those teams? Right now it's Cosmos. I think over time, Initia will kind of steal some market share there, where you'll want to launch as an app specific rollup on Initia rather than as an app chain on Cosmos SDK. And the idea is that you can also like customize these app chains using Cosmos SDK. You inherit IBC and a bunch of this other stuff. So I still believe in the thesis. I just don't think there's a good way to express a bet on it other than like something like Inisha, basically.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. So let's move on.
Oh
So
no,
we
bad
can't
kids
bet
are
on
like the
it.
only Cosmos asset I still feel like are worth holding. So
Which one?
Bad kids.
NFT?
NFTs have been
Bad kids.
struggling.
Still,
I think-
bad kids have done. They've held. They've like. It's not
Yeah,
as
the
bad as
problem with like
everything
NFTs
else.
is if so few make it, it really makes the appeal of taking bets
This
really
Yeah, I
shitty.
know.
This
It's
is
hard
actually a good thing to talk about. NFTs versus meme coins. This is how I felt about meme coins last cycle when NFTs were blowing up, and I was like, "This is fucking stupid. I'm not touching this shit." I bought one, which was like,
I just it's just
correct.
getting in and out of NFTs is so much more. Of a
There's
pain in the
way
ass.
more friction. There's way more friction, but you could also say that there's like an element of like they're more of a social element to them.
Well, it's also like, but the thing is, using a PFP used to be like a flex, and now it's embarrassing. Like if you're on Twitter and
ape.
you've got like a Bored Ape or like a DGOT or something, it's like,
I think
you know,
the Miladies. I can't ever say
ladies.
it.
Why are you saying it
Miladies.
like that? Why are
I
you
don't
saying
know.
it like
Have
that?
you never heard it said out loud?
I have, but I have a trouble
Miladies.
saying it. I don't know.
I mean,
But
Milady's
this is
not
how
the
I felt
cult.
about in 2021, 2022. This is how I felt about NFTs. I'm like, these are so fucking stupid. These aren't going to exist. And now I feel like they've completely died. Maybe they'll come back, but it's kind of I feel like same thing with meme coins. A lot of them.
Do you say F as well?
ETH? No, I say ETH.
Lido.
Good.
Lido.
Lido's a painful one, yeah.
Retardio. I'd buy some of. I'd buy one of those.
I mean, Miladies are like an entire eco. It's not just the PFP.
Yeah,
That's like the only collection I feel like is still kind of around.
and
Maybe
NFTs.
penguins. Yeah.
Nah, the
but
Pudgy
I
Penguins
see-
are doing
penguins.
pretty cool stuff, building a consumer brand. I know like Azuki's doing a raise right now. Doodles did a big raise back in the day. I think Doodles raised at like 750 million.
None of those raises have
2021.
turned out well. So
What
I
are
was pretty surprised
Doodles?
to see the.
I mean, I saw this tweet the other day.
Lady raise go through. I'm sorry, the Pudgy Penguins raise. Like, I guess it's one of the more thriving communities. But after seeing how many swings and misses there were at raising at really large vows to fund communities, which a lot of stuff seems super wasteful.
Doesn't ApeCoin
Incredibly
own, like, a
wasteful.
hotel
So
in
listen,
Bangkok now?
yeah, but
Something
no, that's
like,
an idea.
like,
But
don't worry,
let's
this
talk
is
about
awesome.
Ape though. Let's talk about them though. They raised $450 million. Okay, $450 million. Do you understand how much good you can do in the world? Like literally anything else that money could go towards, and that's so much money. That's like $500 million. It is insane. It's just like hard to wrap your head around the fact that $450 million went to Bored Ape monkey ecosystem. It's like
No, but this like
mean,
what the
yeah.
heck? Honestly, like what? This is Okay, what's this whole thing about? Like
2021 was a hell of a drug, though. That wasn't the only.
yeah, there's a lot.
Super dumb thing to raise.
450 mil was dust in 2021.
Yeah.
What were all these like everyone's talking about these meme coins as like cults, and that's why they're bullish. I'm not really sure I'm following. Everyone's there just to make money. Is anyone there really for like? I could kind of see the Milady people as cultish, but that's like the only one where I feel like those guys are like kind of like.
No, there are people that like really care about. There's a few collections. I mean, in Solana, it's like there's a lot of people that feel the way about Mad Lads. There's Miladies, there's Penguins. Like there's people that rock the Penguins for like a few years. I think there's genuinely people that will never sell, man. There's people that round trip all their Bored Apes. Like this is a thing that's happened. Like people do really become attached to these communities. It's not necessarily bullish just because there's like a few people that are like that.
I'm gonna see what the Milady chart is, but they keep on launching these like derivative collections.
Well,
right?
they're not always launched by them. They're like
it's like
sometimes third
Miladies,
parties.
and then it's like, aren't there like 3 now?
There's a bunch. But it's like Shizzo posters or like a derivative by somebody else.
Schizo posters.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. I mean, I think NFTs are just an inferior way to get beta on crypto compared to memes. They're just like less liquid, harder to buy, harder to sell. Maybe it's easier to tell like some techno optimist story about them being disruptive and like everything is going to be an NFT and all this compared to meme coins, which are just like uh, pure like financial nihilism. You know, NFTs, you can tell like a little story about how this thing is going to become a huge brand and everyone's going to want to, you know, I heard an unnamed person that I will not name say that quite famous say that punks were going to be worth $1 billion. Like one punk was going to be worth $1 billion one day, like with 100% certainty. Back in
I
back
think
in
that narrative
2021.
kind of died in 21 for the most part.
Quite famous. The art on
Yeah.
these schizo
Like, I don't think we've
posters is pretty
seen much
good.
of that narrative come back since 21.
I mean, punks
Because
are
most
like
of these haven't
25 ETH
recovered.
now. It's just like if you
Yeah.
look at the punk chart, it's actually accelerated recently. So it was kind of trading in like this. So from Jan 22 all the way until Jan 24. So like 2 years, it basically just ranged between like 50, 65 ETH. And if you look at the chart from Feb of this year, it's basically a straight line down below 25 now. Yeah, it's like where does that calling bottom on a JPEG is tough. It's
I
like
think,
it's
the other
like
issue is
when
because it's honestly just meme coins cannibalize all the demand and on both ends, right? On the early side, right, you have the ability to buy into some meme at 500K and sell it at 5 mil, and there's a whole cohort of people that do that. There's a whole cohort that are trying to do like the 10 to 100 trade, and then there's a bunch that so like, you know, that's on the lower end. On the higher end, if you're swinging a lot of money around, it's really hard to get size on, and like there are derivative exposures to NFTs where you can do some kind of like leverage trading, but because it's really clunky and not as liquid, the larger players are also prefer to do like you can do perps on memes, and so I think they just cannibalize every part of the kind of the stack of kind of users, both on the lower and the higher end, and just makes trading NFTs a lot less interesting. And yes, you do have the supply sink element of the diehards that are built a story around the NFTs, and that's just like part of the equation. You also need this very speculative element, and so I think what they gain on the narrative side, because of the uniqueness in the story you can tell on the NFTs, you lose massively on the liquidity and ability for traders to just participate in that ecosystem.
I think the flexing was real though, and I do think there's something interesting probably going to be found at the intersect of this like NFT meme coin thing. You know, like what was the thing that launched a few months ago?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I like that
404.
too. Being able to
I like that a lot.
like trade
04
and a certain
circle.
amount of tokens. It was like it was something defrogs with the second one. What was the first one?
I don't believe what it was ERC 404, right?
Yeah,
You can convert a
Aaron was
certain
really
amount
bullish.
of your meme coin into an NFT, which I thought made a lot of sense. The problem was you had like the constant rerolls, and so everyone would trade back and forth. And I think the approach made sense, because I agree that the flexing element is something that you can't really do on a meme coin.
Digital flexing is a big market in the same way that IRL flexing is a big market, right? Like every luxury good is an IRL flex.
But
And
I
like you're
think
gonna
that's
have that
more
as
for
people
like the
spend more and more time
metaverse.
digitally, they're gonna spend more and more time in these like they're gonna be more and more interested in flexing digitally too. Yeah, and in the metaverse, I agree. I mean, in the metaverse, it's already a thing though, right? Like
Fortnite skins are huge, man.
Yeah.
CS:GO skins, it's huge.
CS:GO skins, yeah, and those are the real metaverses right now, right? Fortnite has like I think 700 million.
There's lore
skins,
behind
like
that stuff, right? I think that's part of it, and a reason for you had to do something in order to get that, rather than just purely deploy a bunch of money or be early and buy it for cheap. You actually had to earn some of this stuff, which makes
I don't know if you guys read that
flex.
interview with Neil Stevenson and the Epic Games CEO, like Tim Sweeney. It's really interesting. Like the Epic's pretty much building out kind of like the crypto vision of the metaverse. They also address crypto in there and whether it's necessary to make this happen or not. But they're pretty much building out this
Do they
this
say
open
yes?
items. Yeah, they do say yes. Definitely.
good.
Neil Stevenson is very bullish, right? He's building a project in crypto, which actually sounds pretty interesting. And I think Tim Sweeney is relatively bullish, I would say. Yeah, it's
Yeah. Well, I think like CS:GO skins, like honestly, like you join a lobby, you have like a nice skin, like one of these knives or guns, because you can like drop them and like give them to other players to like look at. Like people, and there's like voice chat, people like, oh my god, man, that's sick. It's like Fortnite, you can't really talk to people as much.
I mean, like there's every game had that, right? Like the party hat and RuneScape, and but a lot of the most flex stuff is earned though, right? Rather than kind of paid for in all these games. It's like the stuff that you really need to work hard to
even
earn.
like back in like Flaming Skulls and Halo, all that stuff. But exactly. That's what I was saying the earlier thing. You have to earn it, and it was a product of accomplishment rather than just capital.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like in the same way, like Nor for all there, that they had this like cool idea of NFTs being like moments from highly competitive games that then become like memorialized and imbued with meaning. But from that, like for instance, owning Habib's gloves or whatever, right? Like I went to this charity auction in Dubai, and some guy paid like 60K for Habib's MMA gloves, right? And
That's cool.
yeah, and it seems like if that were an item in some metaverse or in Fortnite that I could take in to show that I owned Habib's gloves, it would be worth more, right? Like and it is clearly worth a lot. There's a lot of stuff that's like there's a lot of examples of stuff like that, and I think there will be a lot of examples of like digital stuff like that too. I just don't know about like starting a collection with some art that you think is cool and then trying to take that into a brand. Seems like hard. I think the closest people to doing it are probably the Pudgy Penguins. You know, Lucas and the Pudgy Penguins team have done the best job of it. I think the ape stuff is pretty cringe, and like punks have kind of not done too much. But yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of meme coins, Banana got listed on Binance the other week, which is pretty big.
Do we want to talk about all this talk about like the radium coin rugs on?
An immediate cutoff on that? That's a big deal, Cedrus. As a banana holder, you should.
We're going to talk about an exchange listing. Like, who cares?
The first liquid one of Binance of the cycle. I feel like, other than Tau, but Tau is like billions and billions. It's an against the low float, high FTV meta, Cedrus. We're bringing back the reasonably valued coins.
You are a scholar and a saint, Duncan. You are really out here just helping the people avoid the low float, high FTVs. Just very selfless.
I literally was going back to my tweets. I tweeted about the meme coin and all that, like literally right at the top of meme coins. I was like,
yeah, you did.
There's too many launching.
Yeah.
I literally looked. It was a week before.
You were also bearish at the bottom, though.
Yeah, you just always been bearish. And some of them are still doing well. Like some of them are still doing okay.
Meme coins, yeah, specifically.
But I think you have seen a little bit of a shift, at least in. I think you've seen some more like non-meme stuff.
From dogs
get a bit
to
of
cats.
A bid.
Yes, there has been a shift.
Banana versus all those meme charts is still. So who is that? That was someone from Labs. That was Kevin. Put in that poll. I'm winning that bet. He said, what would you rather own, banana or like an equal weight of like the top 6 memes? Bananas.
Yeah, I mean, most
them.
It's just like the takeaway is there's a certain threshold where if your edge is below that threshold, you should go banana, and if your edge is above that threshold,
whose edge is above that threshold? Everyone in our chat, like I think you have to be really damn good to. I mean,
edge being like, are you just
there's a bunch of people
all
in that chat.
Meme coins? Yeah, but like, are you aping all meme coins in random size, or is there, or do you have some sizing that actually where you're allocating to the outperformers?
I don't think I've actually ever sold a meme coin for like profit.
Really?
And I I'm just it's like I don't know why I keep getting sucked.
Sold any?
It's like that. It's like that. It's that meme from The Sopranos. Like just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Like I just keep. I don't put a lot.
I've definitely recycled meme coin profits and then ended up being down into other meme coins, but
no, I legit
Trump
is
you definitely sold something for a gain.
Yeah, Trump
maybe.
is probably my only big winner.
No, I
Trump-
bought the Charlie
Trump
Trump.
made sense. The DJT, Trump made sense. Let's talk about
Whiff
that.
has
What do
been
we
a
think-
great trading one because it's usually gone on runs
Yeah.
where it's
But
like it's when it chops every 5-10%,
Yeah,
it's
so-
really hard to
so
trade.
let's,
But when
like,
it goes on these,
Let's talk about like Solana liquidity, I guess. Like to end this, we still have.
What? I
Well,
want to
this
talk
is on
about
the meme
Trump,
coin thing.
and
So,
then we can talk about that.
what do
I
you
mean,
want to
one
talk
last
about?
point maybe on Cosmos before we go on to that.
Oh.
Who cares
We'll be
about
down to talk about
Cosmos?
Trump.
Last point.
Yeah.
The ICF. The ICF. Like, what do you think the treasury of the
I'm getting
ICF
my
is?
coffee.
Maybe you, Duncan, before you.
Duncan doesn't even know what the ICF is.
Fuck's sake, that's true.
I think your point. I think your point about like Cosmos being this, everybody is incentivized to work on it is not true because it's only the ICF that like maintains anything going on with Cosmos, and it's kind of has this tragedy of the commons thing, where
Nah, dude, Osmosis does like.
there's
I
like
don't
a
have
few.
enough
There's like a
details to know, but
few. There's
Osmosis
like a
does lot.
few. There's a few, but it's
So does
like
Skip.
most
Skip does a lot.
chains. Most chains are just like, yeah, Skip does so much, and they're like not. They don't reap any of those benefits, which is kind of like unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean,
so-
the ICF has like from when I last checked, something like $400 million in various assets that those assets like that deployed intelligently could make a huge difference to Cosmos. And like I do think there's I'm
But
actually
what does
writing a
that
post
even
on it.
mean? Cosmos, as in what? The technology?
Yeah, I think you would basically, you need more chains connected to IBC. Like the interchain economy is like every chain that's connected to IBC, and I think and then you need to make the UX really seamless. Like you need to do what Initia's trying to do, like make the
Yeah.
UX of using all Cosmos chains super seamless. Like fun things like bridges from Ethereum, like UX aggregation layers. Like there's a bunch of other stuff you could do, like make tendermint faster. Like people have been telling me for a year and a half, like, oh, it's like it's trivial to make tendermint faster. It's like just fucking do it then. There's literally nothing higher leverage than making this thing like faster. You know, it's like a consensus algorithm from like
Well, I think
2 generations ago.
Astria is doing what 2-second block times with
Yeah, I mean, Say is doing sub 1 second, right? But that's like co-located validators.
Yeah, I don't know if that
and not
counts.
many of them.
I mean, listen, that's better than like a single sequencer, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
that
Yeah.
would be
I'm gonna go to
cool.
Solana.
Wait, let's do Trump because this is a good tie-in because I think Jan initially talked about
Cosmos to Trump.
at $4. No, I'm just saying for the general
lower than
public.
that.
I think it was 4, but
Nah.
on the
It was
podcast.
like- I think it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, Jan talked about
Whatever.
it pretty early when I was like, "Are you
I
serious,
thought it
dude?"
was 4
Trump.
when I thought it was 4.
No, it was
but
earlier than that, I
anyways.
think.
Yeah.
So it would have been in February. Okay, I'm gonna go with 4. It's at 550
that's
now.
wrong.
Are we buying? All right, fine, 3.5. We'll meet halfway. 3.5. Are we rebuying at 550 before the election? It ran all the way up to 17, and then had a bit of a pump on this assassination attempt. But so a lot of people look like they use it as exit liquidity.
So part of the barrier to getting on exchanges was the tax as a 1% transfer tax that they've been using to donate and to bolster liquidity, basically. And that was strong kind of narrative behind there actually being some good public facing outcome from a meme coin. So what they've done, they've created basically a bridged version to allow assets to move on to sexes without hitting that 1% tax. That was an issue for exchanges. That was an issue for some market makers. So I think what that's going to lead to is some additional sex liquidity, which is needed if you look at kind of what has allowed meme coins to go beyond the low bid 9 figs is those listings and the access that they provide. And so I think that's going to be the fuel for the next leg up. That plus like the probability of
But
the Trump campaign coming out with
Bear in mind,
kind of
Jan's bags are too big to ever sell.
But
he will never be bearish.
Bullish.
Trump.
I'm going down.
I know,
He will never
but
be
Going down the
question.
ship or out up to Valhalla.
But it's like November is the election. Like we're getting kind of close. Like, do you think this thing exists with any attention beyond the election? Like, if he
wins, why not?
I guess
He's
if
going to
he
be bullish
wins,
crypto.
Yeah, I guess if he wins, but there's no like like what are the catalyst? Like the election is such an obvious catalyst, and that's why I like this trade. Like from the beginning, it's like, oh, okay, this is the election and all these events leading up to it. It's like, and like the betting odds, like so many catalysts. Now
I
it
can't
kind of
believe we're
seems
discussing
like
this like catalysts for a meme coin trade on high. This is not what I expected when we set out to do the Hive Mind.
I'm just trying to embrace
Meme
the
coin
culture.
catalyst.
I'm happy to never talk about meme coins on here. We can just talk about Banana, the godfather.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a mind share bet.
Okay.
And if he's in office in bullish crypto,
We're talking about stuff that matters, things we can trade, Jose. You're talking about tech stacks.
You can't argue that this is more useful for our audience.
I cannot. I
You can. You definitely can.
I can argue, but I won't. All right, we want to do the Solana.
I don't know. Do we want to keep going? We've already, I think, recorded for like an hour.
Okay.
I'm down. I want to hear the Solana thing.
Okay. Well, did you see all the stuff that was coming out? So basically,
people are just being like, it's meme coin.
People are launching like,
no,
these.
that's not.
Wait. Tether announces 5.2 billion in profit for first half of 2024. Let's go.
Yeah.
Bid.
So there's like a lot of these, there's a lot of wash trading, right? So people have been talking about like Solana DEX volume a lot and how it's like 50%. Even we've talked about that too, right? In some reports. It's like 50, it's basically even with Ethereum now. But yeah, there's a good amount of volume that is these people launching these meme coin rugs. And so what they do is they launch like a meme coin and then they just do a shit ton of like wash trading back and forth. This shows like a lot of volume, right? It's kind of like a marketing strategy in a sense. Is like, and the amount of fees they're paying for all these pools is like 20, 30K at a time. So it's obviously profitable to like keep doing this to like kind of get attention. And then basically they like rug these or whatever. Okay. So there's like there's a decent amount of rating volume that is like those kind of scams. But it's like people just take it to such an extreme and then just come to the conclusion that it's like a house of cards on Solana because it's like some people are launching meme coin rugs. And it kind of just reminds me of like why criminals use Bitcoin over Monero, even though you would think it makes more sense to use like Monero, right? The reason why people launch like meme coin rugs on Solana is because everyone is using Solana and it's like that's where all the money is. That's where you can actually like successfully launch rugs, right?
The scammers are here. This is mainstream adoption.
It's like it's just a byproduct of a permissionless system, right? Like this is what we're dealing with. These are these are blockchains. Listen, like I don't think anybody, obviously some people think meme coins are like great and they're this, amazing thing, whatever. Most people think meme coins are kind of dumb and they're not like quality assets. But
I actually think most people within crypto are starting, like almost everyone I talk to is like bullish meme coins.
Okay, but they're bullish like maybe the prices of them, but do they think they're like important, right?
The price
is the difference.
The price.
Okay, true. Whatever. I guess my point is like people, the Solana critiques, they just like there's just new qualifiers all the time. Like the more like success the eco sees, the more and more developers it gets. Like this is just like a snowball that like keeps going. And it was a year ago, Solana had 0 users, zero DEX volume. I mean, when I wrote about Solana, it went over half a year with not $1 million on chain trade. Okay.
Really?
So you can't, So you can't tell me that like it went from it literally was kind of a house of cards with SBF, right? And like Serum being the core pillar there. And it did collapse, right? Like it literally did collapse. The house collapsed and went to literal 0. Nobody used it. Was for all intents and purposes basically dead. And now it does just as much volume as Ethereum. And you're going to tell me because like 20% of the volume on Radium are these people launching these rugs that it's just like a house of cards again that's going to 0. Like people just don't like you're missing the forest for the trees, right?
Yeah,
Like you're not really.
that's it. It's like it's just showing that it can be used. It's being used because it works well to facilitate trades quickly.
When are we
And
gonna get
that's-
some payments? Like, let's get something fucking real. Like, what are the tangible, close, real things that are possible? Let's end off on an optimistic note. Payments. Does RWA stuff?
I don't know. I think Futarchy is cool, and yeah, I own meta disclosure.
The Futarchy? Oh, he's gonna bring that up during the comp proposal. Futarchy fixes.
Yeah, it would have been a good, because all you need with Futarchy, you don't need a lot of people paying attention to governance. You're basically just making governance an arbitrage market.
Or people are
And-
incentivized to because they can make money off of it. This is
Right.
a meta DAO on Solana.
That's like
if
that's like
people
the point of it.
aren't aware.
They just yeah.
But it's a band-aid for I guess in this scenario, the problem is more so a DAO that's been abandoned and a protocol that's been abandoned rather than something that's thriving, and in a thriving scenario where the governance doesn't work, even if it's thriving and everyone's paying attention, that you need something like this. This is more of this is abandoned and can get hijacked, and so it would work well to solve that issue. But ultimately the problem isn't the governance design per se, it's more just the fact that no one's paying attention.
Well, I think it's just like,
Maybe.
even if a smaller amount of people are paying attention, like the market, like if there's an incentive to make money, it de facto brings more attention to it, right?
Yeah.
Like if like it de facto.
So no,
That
there's
is a
that.
cool
There's
idea for
also
sure.
there's like some mineral trading thing, trading like mineral rights. It seems kind of interesting. Going live on Solana called Elements.
Oh,
Is this
really?
alpha?
That's kind of
Yeah.
cool. So I can buy
Yeah.
like gold rights under the ground. I actually looked at doing that in Canada. You can buy like the mineral rights.
Yeah. So it's called Elements, but I think it's like MNTS. Like that's how it finishes. I haven't looked too much into it. I've just seen a few people talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and wait, so where is MetaDAO right now? Because it honestly is a cool like product for governance. I also
Well, they
own
just
some
finished their
as
raise.
well.
I mean, they just finished their raise. They raised like 2.34 mil, so that gives them like 2 years of runway. And then, yeah, I'm assuming they'll announce something. I mean, they announced that they finished the raise. They didn't announce anything else about it, like the price they sold at or anything. I don't know.
Okay, so we have payments, the futurarchy, which I don't know, maybe we could link an article in the show notes for people to read how it works.
I don't think that's yeah. I mean, I think feel like the proven crypto
RWA.
were stable coins, DeFi, and like speculation and decentralized speculation infrastructure, I guess.
But I'm thinking new ones, like
new
payments,
ones.
like haven't really happened.
I
The
think gaming,
futurarchy
I'm really
hasn't
so like we.
Gaming.
I don't think we can talk about it yet, but we've done one that Piers and I have been playing over the last few weekends that I think could be the one. And admittedly, I've said that maybe said that before, just once though. I think, to be fair, but yeah, this one I think is like a world-class level shooter, like competitive with Warzone type of thing, with a really well-designed crypto economy on the back of it.
And a really good first player, and really good first player lore building. That
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, if you guys are gonna, you guys can't tease it this much if you're not gonna talk about it.
Yeah, we can.
we will next episode, probably next episode we can talk about it. And it's going to be on Steam. It's going to be, I do think we're going to get one. And I think gaming is the most likely way that we onboard like millions of users. And like I think the only evidence you need is like crappy games and like tapping your phone scams onboard tens of millions of users. So what's the real?
Sorry, I feel like you've been the most bearish gaming on our side from the venture perspective.
Well, I've been bearish us continuing to plow ridiculous amounts of money into gaming, considering
Sir, it's gonna change the world.
I mean, we've already had a bunch of good outcomes. So
if we didn't have, we had.
Even without that, we still definitely have a bunch of good outcomes. So I think you're kind of over-indexing for and making that the basis for your bearish.
Sir, this
You
is
want gaming?
venture.
We just get we've just done a lot of gaming investments and a lot of money into
Yeah.
gaming. I feel like if that sector does well, we're gonna be set anyway. And it's like I just don't feel like we need to do every second deal as a gaming
Sure, we
deal.
don't.
We don't need to bring Delphi Ventures drama into the hive mind here.
Well, I mean, you can't like take both sides of you can't.
I'm bullish.
Jose doing the
Oh.
public victory laps while in IC.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like
What
having
victory
to
lap? This thing
convince you
isn't
that we
even
should still
live.
be-
I hope it's a victory lap. No, I've always been fucking bullish gaming. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. I voted yes on most.
Well,
of these deals.
you're also outvoted if you're the only one that's bearish on a certain deal.
Yeah. Well, let's see the deals that I voted no on. I'm definitely bullish gaming. I think it's the most likely way that we get a bunch of users into crypto. And I'm bullish this game specifically. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Like other ways, like Deepin, I think could do some could be a really good way of getting people.
Yeah, so on Deepin, actually, one thing I saw that Ryan, what's his name, Ryan Beckmans or Berkmans or whatever, he talked about this whole Solana thing, whatever versus Ethereum. But one thing he wrote in that is how like Solana embraced these things that a lot of like Ethereum leaders just said were straight up scams, right? And like Deepin was one of them. And I find that such an insane take to have after like a year, of Deepin or a year or two of Deepin's existence, because it's kind of like if we're not creating things that actually impact the physical world, it's all just like a massive self-referential system. And so I do think like Solana, that's another thing, is they took Deepin, people associate Deepin with Solana now a lot, even though it's not all on Solana or anything. And yeah, I'm excited about to see a lot of like what comes out of the sector. I do think we're talking about like there's no quality assets to trade. Obviously you can put like funds like, money markets and all that stuff on chain. I find that kind of boring. But this is one way to get some new kind of like quality assets. Then there will be a few.
On the RWA stuff, like you could put some interesting stuff on chain, like secondaries of like cool companies like SpaceX or something. That would be really cool. Like that could be interesting. The other thing I think could be cool is incentivizing certain behaviors, like kind of like the Deepin stuff, but like we've seen it with the clicker games, like incentivizing like social media engagement and followers, but like you could take that to a whole nother level, incentivizing certain behaviors. I'm trying to think of a good example. I had one in my head, but basically incentivize. Oh, like the World Coin. Yeah, like the World Coin is like, okay, like we're giving you airdrop to go scan your eyes for something that could be much bigger. Obviously, that's just like one example. Like incentivizing human action with these like new coins that you just like spin up out of nowhere and like giving your users like equity in the company. It's like a way to distribute, like if you had a startup, like get a bunch of customers for giving away in return for equity, which is really cool.
No, I mean
there's a lot of flexibility there.
The whole token route, right? Like on the DeFi side, I think one of the things discovered is it's really hard to make it so that what you incentivize is more valuable than the incentive, because someone else can kind of go and spin up something comparable and try and undercut you or something like that. And so it creates issues on the sustainability front. But the deep inside where you have network effects, I think is definitely an interesting one, and incentivizing basically the funding of hardware that creates a network that otherwise couldn't have existed.
Network effects, and also like scalability and like more users, right? Like DeFi, they're all kind of fighting over the same capital and users, where it's like if you take this out of just the crypto world into like anyone can do this, then like your cost per acquiring user or capital probably goes way down, right? Because like people do stuff not even knowing it's worth anything.
Right. On like the DeFi side, I think you have like diminishing economies, like diseconomies of scale. Whereas on things like Deepin, it's more valued in terms of it being a network, which has economies of scale.
Yeah.
Up until a certain point, and then there's
like
probably diseconomies.
What would be cool, I think, is like if you think about like Balaji's like network states, where he talks about like whatever I think he gives an example of like the sugar free or like the carb free like network state. Like you could probably start doing that through some sort of token, and then like have people send in their blood work to like prove that they're not eating any sugar or something, like, and then like start creating like a cult of people who are like against this one thing, and then like prove it somehow. With that, like I feel like you could get really creative in the future to try and like incentivize a community or like create a community to do a certain action. Anyways, there's more than I think people realize. It's just probably a bit further away than we think. Like Bitcoin and like that getting adopted, like we're talking about, like the former president of the US is talking about buying it. It's like right here, right now, on like an institutional and potentially like governmental level. Even though I think that's still probably a few ways ago, probably pretty unlikely right now, but that's at least like in the conversation. Whereas like all this other crypto stuff is like there's ideas that make sense. It's just like still so far away. Even like the payment stuff, right? Like the payments has made sense for so long. It's gonna happen on blockchains eventually. It's almost like certain. It just makes so much more sense, but we still don't have like a widely used payments app. So anyways, there's definitely lots of opportunity. Just the market's getting a lot more saturated.
Yeah.
So you just have to be
Yeah.
I feel like we should wrap this up.
Should we wrap? Yeah, I feel like we're rambling now.
Yeah.
Good episode.
Rambling about the alpha.
Huh?
This is just alpha at the end.
All right, good episode, guys.
Bye.
See y'all in a couple of weeks.
See ya.
And see you later.
Bye. Nothing said on the Hive Mind is a recommendation to buy or sell securities or tokens. This podcast is strictly for informational purposes only, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our own opinions, not financial advice.